Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ariann Black's Magic Kitchen with your host, Anthony Darkstone.
Hello, greetings, and welcome to everybody, wherever you may be in the world. I know for some people it's evening, so good evening. For others, it's afternoon, particularly in Texas, where our guest comes from today, so good afternoon. And some of you further east, good morning to you. Now, our guest today is kind of special because she's not going to cook anything. What she's going to do is be talking about preserving, and I won't steal her thunder. She will do that. Speaking of thunder, I wove the Thunderbird specially for her. I wove the Thunderbird specially for her because part of her DNA is from the Osage people, which are kind of northern Texas, Oklahoma, and other parts. She also has a fascinating YouTube channel called The Indian Preservation. It's not the Indian Reservation, but the Indian Preservation. Why does she call it that? Well, you're going to find out in a little bit. Before we get to that, what we want to do is to share with you just a little bit of Cindy Bighorse's Indian Reservation. So whenever Dr. Joel is ready, we'll just run the clip.
This is Indian Preservation, and my name is Cindy Bighorse. And as our name indicates, we're going to talk about food preservation. We started out as a series of workshops for senior citizens, and in a year's time, we outgrew that venue, and we needed to do something to accommodate the growing audience. So we moved to YouTube. That's a huge change for us and very exciting. For you, nothing will change. We will continue to show you a variety of ways to preserve your food. You can dehydrate, you can water bath can, you can pressure can. We'll be fermenting and curing and smoking. We'll be making cheese and homemade bread. One of the things that sets us apart from other preservation channels is that we will be bringing students into the kitchen. They will do the work so you can see how easy it is. I want to thank Julian and Lambert photographers for the use of their kitchen studio. My name is Cindy Bighorse, and I hope you join us on our food adventures as we explore Indian preservation.
Wow, so that gives you a little snippet of what's happening. We're not in that particular studio today. We're actually in another studio, which behind Cindy, as you will see in a moment after Ariann introduces her, are all kinds of illusions and magic props. Why? Because she happens to be married to a wonderful illusion maker and a magician called Bruce Chadwick. And it's very appropriate because this is the Magic Kitchen.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
please welcome
Cindy Bighorse. Yeah. We have to say a very, very special welcome, as Ariann said, to Zoe. Now, who is Zoe? Zoe is the extra special guest today and happens to be Cindy's granddaughter. And Ariann and I absolutely love this because you are the first young person to be on the show. How nice it is to have a lovely young lady like you. Right, Ariann?
It is.
We're looking forward to listening to both of you. So, without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Cindy Bighorse and the fabulous Zoe.
Hey, Zoe. Hey, everybody. Welcome again to Texas. It's great to have you back here. Today, our topic is about honey. And our sponsors this week are the Rescue Bee Ranch, and these guys are exactly what they sound like. These guys, when people call and have bees in their homes or their trees or their churches, they come to the rescue and they save the bees and take them back home. But not just the bees, they also save the brood hive, which is where the babies are. And they put those in frames and they transport that back to the ranch. Just as importantly, they do everything they can to not only protect the bees and the babies, but to protect people's personal property. But what makes it even more special is that these two fellas that own and operate the Rescue Bee Ranch, would you believe it? They're magicians, both of them. Shell Higgins has the Grandpa Show, and you may have seen him. He was on America Lacks Common Sense. No, it's America's Got Talent. That's what it is. But he does this daredevil act that really is quite intense. And Rob Divers, his partner at the Rescue Ranch, is a pediatric magician, and he uses magic to calm children down before they go in for surgery, as well as the families. And he actually worked with Patch Adams for a while, which I think is pretty cool. They are our sponsors today. They provided the honey for the show, but I wanted to give them a plug because they're one of the better rescuers in the area, and they gave us honey. So
can we leave you and Zoe to do what you guys do best, which is teaching us all about honey and preserving and things like that?
Before we start cooking with the honey, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the process of making honey. Do you know how long the bee lives, the worker bees?
Yes, the worker bees live 5 to 6 weeks.
So they have a very short lifespan. And in that time, they collect pollen from about 2,500 flowers. So yeah, busy as a bee. That makes a lot of sense. But in their lifetime, a bee can only produce about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. And I've got a little measuring spoon here, and I'm going to try to come up closer to this. But this is about 1/12, and this is a teaspoon. So can you imagine 5 to 6 weeks, and that's all you make is this?
Wow, that's not a lot.
It's not, and in metric terms, it's about 0.5 milliliter. This is a 3-pound jar of honey. It'll probably take close to 2,500 to 3,000 bees to make this, and about 6 million flowers are needed to make this quart jar of honey.
So it's really important that, hobbyists grow their flowers so that bees can use the pollen to make honey. Bees will fly fairly far away to get that pollen.
About 30 miles. So without the flowers, bees will starve. We really need to have people plant them. Great projects to do with your kids, to do in your community.
Even a small patch of wildflowers growing in your yard is going to help bee populations a lot.
Oh, yes, especially the wildflowers, because they don't require a lot of maintenance where you live.
So how do you like to store your honey?
I store it in a jar, and I leave it in my cabinet.
Honey is the only food that people eat that does not spoil.
That is correct.
And so I like to have my honey, I store it in this type of a little mason jar that has the rubber seal, even though I know it won't spoil. It's got the spoon there ready to go, but I find this for me is the easiest way to store my honey. And I'm actually using the honey right now in my tea.
Oh, very good.
So what are you going to make for us today with the honey?
Well, we're going to start off with some honey butter. This is a really easy recipe. We're going to use 3 parts butter and 1 part honey. And I'm going to let Zoe mix this up. Now what I have here, this probably looks a little different, but this is cultured butter. And we made this the other day. Cultured butter is butter that has a starter added to it. It's a similar starter like you would use for cheese. Yeah, so what Zoe's talking about is I have 2 different flavors of honey. The jar in the front is peach flavor. This jar is wild.
The honey that I have right now that I'm using is from a lavender grove. And so they sell the lavender as well as there's a honey farm nearby and they sell honey.
Just stirring the honey and the butter together till it's nice and smooth. You got honey butter, you have to try it, right? And what Zoe has is a pan of homemade rolls I made this morning. And this is, I don't know if you can see that, but this is our family recipe for homemade rolls. And this recipe's been in our family for over 100 years.
And they're really good.
We'll let her try that first. And what's nice about getting honey butter to this place is you could add cinnamon or other spices to it and make it whatever you want, whatever flavor you want. Customize it to you and your family, and let the kids get involved. Let them design or customize their own flavor.
That's really good.
So cultured butter tastes a little different than regular store-bought butter. It has a little bit of an aged flavor to it.
Rod has said, he says thank you to Ariann because he didn't know that honey didn't spoil. So I think it's worth repeating. On one show, I think, Ariann, you were talking about local flowers, local honey, and that's probably more important.
With allergies, yes. So if you have a problem with allergies, it doesn't cure you of your allergies, but it helps to alleviate them. And so you get the local honey. And because the bees are out there pollinating and getting all that pollen, it's mixed actually into the honey that you're eating.
Before Cindy gets into the next part, this would be a good time to put the still up of you at the bee sanctuary holding up the honeycomb. There you go. That's Cindy in the white. The other gentleman is part of the bee sanctuary, and those are the actual honeycombs. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Cindy?
Well, the honeycomb that you're looking at there is actually called a brooder comb. So all the little bee babies are inside of that. And that's one of the important things that Shell and Rob try to collect. They try to bring as much of that home as possible. Granted, the bees are just as important, but yeah, that's loaded with babies. The comb with the actual honey in it, they remove that from the hive and then they put that in a bucket and take it home and strain it. Those frames will go into a beehive, and you'll see the beehives in the video clip when we get to that, but those will be in the lower two sections, and the honey is called a super hive, and it's in the upper section.
So what are you making now?
Well, we're going to make some lemonade, but we're going to make lemonade with preserved lemons. And I use preserved lemons a lot in my cooking, but I also like to, but it's mostly peels, but I like to use the pulp and the brine from this. And you can see it's real thick and syrupy. Because it's fermented and preserved, it's loaded with probiotics. So we're going to make a lemonade out of this. And I'm going to reach in here and grab half of a lemon peel.
Forgive me interrupting you, Cindy, but when you say you preserve that, is there a quick explanation you can give us?
I cut the lemons in half, and then I slice them almost into quarters. I still want to keep, and then I layer it with salt. So I'll put a layer of salt in, and then I'll squish a lemon peel, and we squeeze it enough to get the juice out of it. This quart jar holds about 6 to 8 lemons, depending on the size.
Oh, sour.
Okay.
It is sour because it's lemon.
It smells really it's like really strong.
I'm going to put some of this peel in here.
So just to be right, while you were doing that, you get the lemons, wash them, of course, then cut them up, pop them in a jar with some salt. Yes. So if you're using 4 lemons, how much salt would you use? A tablespoon? Just a teaspoon?
For a quart jar, I use 5 teaspoons of salt. I'm overwhelmed by the lemon smell.
Yeah, it actually smells, it's really strong.
I love the smell of lemons. It makes me think of things that are clean.
Yes, in summary. But I just add a little bit of water to it.
Is this mint?
That's some mint. I have some ice here. I'm going to throw in a few pieces of ice. You can make this grown up by adding some vodka or gin to this. Add a little more water. And I don't know if Zoe will like this flavor because it's kind of grown up tasting. We'll just garnish it with a little bit of mint, and then we'll let her taste it.
Strong.
you just need more. Zoe, you just need more honey.
You need a lot more honey?
Yeah, I know.
So one of the things with honey is that honey is sweeter than sugar, but it's not as bad for you. And so a lot of times in my cooking, I will use honey instead of sugar.
And it makes the sauce, if you're doing something, say like, Oriental food, and we've talked about this before, Ariann, I think adding little bits of honey to it or to a stir fry or something. Harriet wants to know, that's a good question, really good question. How long does it take for the lemons to ferment?
21 days. And I've got a video on my channel called Preserved Lemons. And you need to make sure you open that jar every day because as it ferments, it creates gases. And if you don't open it for like 3 or 4 days, you could potentially explode your jar.
You serious? You mean
Yes,
if you
Yeah,
drop
gotta let those jars toot.
Yeah, if you put the lemons and the salt in the jar and you seal it up and just leave it there somewhere warm like Texas, it's just going to blow. It's just going to blow on you?
It could. You want to sit in a out of direct sunlight at 65 to 75 degrees for 21 days. But all you have to do is just open the jar every day, let the gases out. But you can watch the bubbles come up when it's first starting to ferment. And once it's done, I let it sit in the refrigerator. It's great to use on like grilled chicken breast or on salmon. Chop it up with a little bit of butter and dill. It's delicious. And because it has salt on there, you really don't have to add salt to your meat.
What kind of salt? What kind of salt would you recommend? Good rock salt, or the thin, fine stuff, or does it not matter?
You want to use a canning salt or a sea salt. You would need to
Okay.
read the label and make sure it doesn't have any anti-caking agents to it, iodine or any other additives, because that'll cause your rice to really, really dark and get cloudy. But if you're going to make it, it may as well look pretty.
Cindy, while you're cleaning up, I'm going to show people a really quick thing to make that you can spread on crackers with goat cheese and honey. Just like honey butter, you can take goat cheese, and I'm going to add a nice big spoonful. I'm going to mix it in with the goat cheese. Now, when I do this, not only do I like the honey and the goat cheese, I like to take, this is culinary lavender, and these are special rose hips, and I will take a cup. So I take them into, I have a spice grinder, but I can also use it for grinding flour, and I will grind those flours until they are a nice fine powder. And we're going to take a little bit of that and sprinkle it into the goat cheese, and now I have a lavender, rose, honey, goat cheese that can be spread on any cracker.
We're going to get an education. Well, let me think this very carefully. On the 21st of August at 3 p.m., 3 p.m. Texas time, 4 p.m. Eastern, and 9 p.m. UK time, and then add an hour or two, depending on where else you are in Europe, watching it, or more hours if you're in Japan. The flowers and edible things.
I see that Cindy's got something else started. Cindy,
Oh, yeah.
what are you going to show us next?
Well, this is a honey balsamic mustard vinegar, not vinegar, dressing for salads. And I'm over here smelling the balsamic vinegar. It's really good. I actually got this when Bruce and I were in Nashville last summer. And Steve Kilgore, he's a magician up in Nashville. He took Bruce and I around and took us to the Nashville olive oil company. And they had great olive oil and absolutely wonderful balsamic vinegar. We're going to make balsamic honey mustard dressing. Well, Zoe is. So we're going to start out with 3 tablespoons of honey, and then you're going to add the balsamic vinegar, pour all of it in. And that's the great thing about having the kids here. I can lick my fingers and she can do work. And then the mustard. And this is whole grain mustard that we make in our fermenting class in Indian preservation. And it's really good. I like it a lot. And then 3 or 6 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we have a clove of garlic and some salt and pepper to taste.
If you're native and you're a grandma, you don't actually measure anything. Native Americans go, yeah, that looks about right. Well, maybe a little bit more.
That's what I do.
I know.
Cooking is to taste, but baking is exact.
And food preservation is exact as well. Now, my mom is Cajun, and so their favorite measurement is some.
My mother was Scottish, and her favorite measurement was a wee bit.
A wee bit. And then my aunt, hers is some, and then a little bit more. But anyway, when this is all mixed up together, Bruce and I travel a lot, or we used to.
Yeah.
And I like to just dip it in here, take, what do they call them, crudettes? And this is a great snack when you're on the road, because you don't have to stop and you can eat while you're driving. Really good dressing.
So what was in the dressing again?
3 tablespoons of honey, 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of whole grain mustard, clove of garlic, 6 tablespoons of olive oil, and salt and pepper to taste. And I love this dressing on a spinach salad with grilled chicken. And some thinly sliced red onions. And you want to try it? Yeah. Okay. She doesn't like mustard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I know Ariann likes it as I do as well. I mean, the stuff will blow your head off and clear your sinuses, but I love it. It's Japanese and it's called wasabi. Many of you will know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's like in a little toothpaste tube. Yeah. And as Ariann was saying, if you experiment with it, it kind of yeah, it's a different taste to using your kind of regular yellow Dijon mustard gives it one taste if you're making a dressing, and wasabi gives it a whole different taste. So yeah, I think you like the wasabi quite a bit, don't you, Ariann? Like me. Yeah.
I do. I like the heat that the wasabi has. Yeah.
And on a word of caution, if you use wasabi, just very, very little.
It will clean your sinuses.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little tiny bit.
Okay, what else you got for us there, Cindy, now?
So in Texas, you have to, if you're ever visiting here, you have to go eat Mexican food. And for dessert, you have to have sopapillas. And sopapillas are fried bread, but they're hollow on the inside. But I like to take mine up a notch. Instead of covering it with cinnamon and sugar, I add like 3 tablespoons of sugar, teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. And I call these Texas hand grenades because the proper way to eat a sopapilla is you bite the corner off. I need a bigger bite. And I don't know if you can see, but it's hollow in the middle.
Yep, we can see that.
And then you just pour honey into that little hole. And I call this a hand grenade because you've seen the old war movies where the guys, bite the pin and with their teeth. But so you have to bite the corner off, and then you take a bite of this, and with the cayenne pepper, it takes a minute for that heat to hit you. There it is. Yep, it's hot. Shell from the Rescue Bee Ranch says we need to open up a booth at the state fair with these next year. He likes these a lot.
You do realize that you're making me homesick, right?
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, okay.
That's a great, easy one to make.
Honey and sopapillas, easy.
So while they're cleaning up and getting ready for the next one, I'm going to show you what to do with some brie and honey. At Christmas time, a lot of people like to make baked brie. It's really not hard. You take a wheel of brie, and so that I don't eat all of it, I'm just going to cut off a corner. So I'm just going to make a small piece of baked brie. We're going to take that. It goes into a bowl. We're going to add a nice big dollop of honey, another term for measuring. And we're going to sprinkle on a little bit of cinnamon, just a little bit. I'm also going to add cranberries. Now, I like to take frozen cranberries, cut them in half, and sprinkle them on top. You're going to take this, and it's going to go into the microwave for 30 seconds. So while it's in there, you're going to take a walnut. You're going to take the flat of your knife, and you're going to crush that walnut. And I've already got one crushed. See how I've got all the little pieces here? We're going to take those pieces of walnut, sprinkle them on top, and now you have baked brie.
Can that work in the oven? Oh,
Yes.
Seriously?
So at Christmas time, when I make the entire thing, I take the whole wheel with the rind still on it. I stick it into the oven and in a piece of tin foil. You let it cook in the oven for about 10-15 minutes, depending on your altitude. At about 300. All you have to do is poke the wheel. When it's soft, it's done.
Tom wants to know if you don't have cranberries. Yes, you can use raisins or blueberries or anything you want, I suppose.
Yes, you can use other fruits, but if you don't have any fruit, sun-dried tomatoes. Don't put the cinnamon in it. The honey, sun-dried tomatoes, and the brie.
Well, while Ariann was there, Bruce brought this box to me, and I'm not exactly sure what he wants me to do with this thing. I don't know what either, but it's empty. There's nothing in here, so it's kind of worthless, don't you think?
Yeah.
But what did he tell you to do? Snap your fingers or something?
No, clap.
Clap. Okay. Well, that's what happened. Oh my goodness. Look what we have in here. Apple pie filling that sits on my shelf.
Ah, that's very cool. Yes, let's clap. Let's, like Bruce said, everybody clap. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I thought apple pie would be fun this time.
Okay, Zoe, this is for everybody, not just me. Go ahead, take a big chunk. Yummy! Yes! Well done. So while you're filling those up with that, I think we want to just kind of like those of you who know me well will know of my native DNA, and Ariann and I have a column in MUM, which is the Saturday American Magicians magazine, and it's called Magic Around the World, and we have deliberately try to feature people of different ethnicity, different genders, people who are not, shall we say, abled, or physically challenged. So we do that. And in Native American communities, a lot of it was preserved. If you didn't do that, you literally starved. And one of the things that have come down through the ages is beef jerky. And that was, strips left to dry out in the sun. There's other processes, some of them rubbed with berries and things. Would this be a good time, Cindy, to just run the clip about the ranch and what they do, where the honey comes from?
I think that would be perfect time.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
I'd love to see that.
That's the seal of the Osage Nation. Yes, usually we always refer to groups. The English word is tribes, but we actually say peoples, and in English that sometimes gets translated to Osage Nation. Despite dances that Wolves showed you, there are about 600 different languages and dialects in Native American culture. So if you can imagine, Indian culture is that broad and that stretched out. This is the seal of the Osage Nation, which is part of Cindy's and, of course, obviously Zoe's DNA.
We started Recipe Ranch in 2018, and we started out first with building our own hives from bees that we purchased. Those are the ones you see behind me. But soon we realized that we had a greater mission, which was to help save bees and local pollinators, and also help our neighbors by removing unwanted beehives from people's property. Spring is a really busy time on the ranch and for bee removals. So this last season, we added more than 15 new hives made up entirely of bees rehomed from people's backyards and tool sheds and soffits. Our slogan started out as saving the planet one bee at a time. But what we've learned is a lot of folks are interested in becoming backyard beekeepers themselves. So our next step has been helping others set up beehives at their homes with some of the bees we've rescued. So we've added to our mission, saving bees one beekeeper at a time. One of our goals at Rescue Bee Ranch has always been to rehome these bees and to allow them to live as naturally as possible with as little intervention from us. So we're not trying to artificially grow these hives and be a big honey producer. We're trying to let the bees do what they would naturally do. A good example of that is what we call the tree hive. This hollowed out tree became home to a colony of bees in someone's backyard, and they were perfectly happy living inside that tree. So instead of removing the bees and bringing them to the ranch, we brought the entire tree stump to the ranch. Bees pollinate about 80% of the world's plants. That means they're responsible for about 1 out of every 3 or 4 bites of food you take. So this is something that is a hobby for us, but it's also a passion and a mission. And we feel very excited and grateful to be able to do it.
I think a serious point needs to be made here, and that is bees are absolutely crucial to the planet, because as the lady says, pretty much every bite of food that you take in one form or another has been there, and you're eating it because of the bee. It's not just honey. So I'm firmly behind, and I know Ariann is as well, taking care of natural things and so on. And that bees are vital to us, because if the bees are gone, we're done.
And one of the best ways to help beekeepers is to support and buy local honey. Honey doesn't need anything other than plain honey. It's good for you. It's healthy. It's great for your immune system. You can use it in your baking, your cooking, even your tea. It can be used in anything and everything, anything that you want sweetened. If you put honey in, you'll be so much more satiated than if you put sugar into it. Because of bees, it is an important part of our ecosystem.
Right.
Absolutely.
And birds eat seeds and drop the seeds somewhere else and plant seeds. That's why grapes grow on fence lines so well. So you brought up a good point about, honey working on our immune system. Last year, I read about honey-infused garlic. Even though it's honey, it's very watery. But this is really super easy to do. You have to use fresh garlic, sorry, the garlic in the jar is not going to work. Peeling garlic's easy, and we're gonna put the knife with the edge down and then just press on it. And you want the garlic cloves up, but you don't wanna smash it to smithereens. Split and just put it in the jar. Whatever amount of garlic you want. I like to fill the jar about 2 inches, 3 inches from the top, no more than that, with the garlic. And then I'm just gonna cover this with honey. And it's very important that you use raw, unpasteurized honey. And you wanna cover that about 1/2 inch. And I just put a coffee filter on top of this, and I just put the lid on it because I don't wanna close this in completely. I want the honey to be able to breathe. And I let this sit on my shelf, on my kitchen counter, again, 65 to 75, and I think in Celsius, that's 18 to 24 degrees for 5 days. It'll go from real thick and syrupy like this
to
watery, but you just leave it in your refrigerator.
And it's just crushed garlic and honey?
Fresh cut crushed garlic and raw unpasteurized honey. That's it. You want to try it?
It's perfect for a honey garlic chicken.
And you say that's pretty good. That's pretty good for, you know, your chest and bronchial tubes and things like that. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I was saying. I just took a teaspoon of this honey with a little piece of garlic every morning since November, and I got through the winter, the cold and flu season that's coming up here real quick. But this is the first year I didn't get bronchitis. So all that Zoe and I have. What is it? What is it that you and your dad made for breakfast with honey?
Pancakes. They're banana pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
So we use we make regular pancakes, but our little secret ingredient is bananas. And then once they're all made, we drizzle honey all over it, and it's really good.
I bet. Yeah. This is all a labor of love on everybody's part. And more importantly, the Society of American Magicians. I ought to say real quick to you that we have on Facebook, it's very easy to find. It's called Ariann Black's Magic Kitchen. And just ask to join. Ariann and myself will just approve you. And from time to time, Ariann will put up when she's available, if you want a kind of private one-on-one or one-on-two, she'll just take you through it on Skype or somewhere. She'll cook along with you and actually make something that you can eat.
I do that all the time, where I help people make delicious meals. And yeah, I tell them what ingredients we're going to need. They go get it, and we cook together through Skype. It's great. I love it. I noticed that Tom said that he's heard that if you take a spoonful of honey before going to bed and you're hungry, that those hunger pangs go away.
Rick Pugh, he says, as a beekeeper, I want to give Cindy and Zoe a big thank you, and they are unbelievably great. Yes, I agree. They are unbelievably great.
I really want to thank you guys for this opportunity because, like I told you, I am not a magician. I'm just married into the art. But I love that we have cooking to be able to tie us together. So this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having us here.
So much for being a part of the show. We loved having you, Cindy and Zoe.
Really, really wonderful.
When the shows are edited, they're generally put on Vimeo on Monday, and we always, on the group.
Yep.
We post the links, and so you can go and watch past episodes.
Go to the showcase. Honestly, some of them are like 7 or 8 minutes. Others like are about an hour on average, and it's just different. And what we're going to be doing now, just post the recipe.
So I like the idea of posting it with the video link.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to that time now. So all remains is to say, thank you so much, everybody, for coming along. I hope you all had as much fun that Ariann, myself, and Joel had. I certainly learned a lot. I hope you did. Please feel free to contact Cindy via her Facebook page or to her YouTube channel. When the video is done, it'll be up on the video saying, on the clip, it will say the Indian preservation. Nice play on words. Yes. The Indian preservation. But if you can't wait, just go to YouTube, type in Cindy Bighorse or the Indian preservation.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and don't forget to be a little sweeter.
Yes, and last of all, before we go, as the director and host of this show, I'm going to ask you to give our very, 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 very special guest, Zoe, who I thought did absolutely fantastically. So nice round of applause for her, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Take a bow, Zoe. Take a bow. There you go. Yeah. All right. Well,
Curtsy.
come join us. Not next week, because there's other stuff going on. 21st of August, we have Trixie Bond, but she'll be focusing on edible flowers. Ladies and gentlemen, from me, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Zoe and Cindy Bighorse. Thank you, Cuz. Nice job. And I'll just leave you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the Magic Kitchen. Bye.
Bye-bye.